and this is quite something. And I cannot believe that time is flying so fast. And
I can't believe that you're still awake. You're incredible.
I don't know. It's energizing, and I feel I'm getting more energy out than I put in. And
incredible.
That is quite something. Thank both of you really for joining. I know you both are such great insignificant workers in the field of theater, and both of you really have contributed so much to, let's be honest, to the history of theater and to new theater. So it's a big honor to have both of you with us. Traditionally, normally we do start with the Indian part, but I think they might not have been signed on. Maybe they are on the other link still. So I think we should start. And we have with us today Carey Perloff, who is a great artistic director, writer in theater, and Toshiki Okada, one of the great contemporary theater makers in the world, and highly regarded by scholars, but also by theater colleagues. And he really has made a great contribution. Both of you talked to me, and I felt it was really important to have you both with us. Maybe Toshiki, if it's okay with you, we start with Carey. And Carey, where are you, and what time is it?
I'm in San Francisco, and it's 10 p.m. It's very civilized for me. Yeah.
Amazing. And Toshiki, where are you?
I'm in Tokyo, and it is 2 p.m.
Oh, not even more civilized.
2 p.m. in the afternoon. So yeah.
Yes, 2 p.m.
Yes, I know you are before rehearsals, right? At 3 o'clock.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm that's why I'm in the studio.
Yes, that's why we have you earlier. This is a fantastic, and so we have with us here Gunduraju, if I say that right. So thank you and welcome, and to be back with. I know it's Anurupa, right? And you will be translating. This is Anurupa, one of the great puppeteers in the world, and a fantastic worker in theater, and one who also took care of a big village, or is connected where about 10,000 Indian artists, often traveling artists, live together, and she did an incredible relief work. And when we talked to her, she looked out of her window, or had looked out of her window, where about 500,000 people were leaving New Delhi on foot, the servants, the lower castes, who were no longer welcome because they were looked at as infectious, and they did biblical marches, or were prepared to do this up to 1,000 kilometers. Unbelievable what she saw and went through. So Anurupa, Gunduraju, if I said right, is a very famous puppet player, right? And he will join us when he comes. So maybe we start with our American guests and our guests from Japan. So Carey, say a little bit about you and your work for all the audience members who do not know about you, and then I'm a director and a writer and a teacher, and for 25 years in San Francisco, I ran just till a year and a half ago a big famous theater here called the American Conservatory Theater, which I loved and wanted to come to because it's also a school. So I know much of what, Frank, you've been doing over this amazing day has been about education and whose shoulders we stand on and who we are passing things on to, and what kind of work we're building. So I had the privilege of, collaborating with many artists from around the world for all my years at ACT. And most recently during COVID, I'd been traveling all over the world working. So I was locked down here. So I wrote a book on my collaborations with Tom Stoppard and Harold Pinter, whom I worked with very closely in the room, just trying to sort of articulate what that experience was, what I learned, why they were so valuable to me. And I'm also a playwright. So I've been doing a lot of writing during this time, and
and a lot of thinking about how we might reimagine the American theater, which already needed to be reimagined before the pandemic. And now it really, what we learned in the pandemic is that artists are the first people to get fired right away. We have all these institutions, and the institutions hold on to their staffs, but the artists just go, and they're supposed to live on air and disappear until such time as they're called back again. And I think it's completely a backwards way to think about our field, and that we have to reimagine it from the bottom up, really. So
that is something. So, so you have such a great experience over decades. What would be pragmatic things you would say this is actually can be changed and should be changed right away?
I think we shouldn't be scared. This is going to sound insane from me sitting here in America, where we have so hyper professionalized the theater. I don't think we should be scared about making it, about sort of deprofessionalizing a little, getting a little bit smaller. When I started my career, I came to New York, I knew no one. I worked at the International Theater Institute as the secretary. So that's how I learned global theater. I met everybody and came in to see Martha Coignet, but theater, I worked in a much smaller way, and we all rehearsed at night. And then we had day jobs. And I think things are going to have to go that way. We're going to have to think that way. I think we're going to have to try and find ways for people to contribute to the theater in terms of time or money or space, so that we're not going to spend our lives begging money from corporations we'll never get government funding. We're too dependent on certain kinds of funding. But we have a very creative, I live in San Francisco. This is Silicon Valley. People have created new business models for everything. There has to be a new business model for the nonprofit theater that thinks about it differently. And I actually feel hopeful about it if we could stop being so institutional. I mean, the other thing I wish, and you're in a university, is that we had a more creative relationship between the professional theater and academic theater. But it's very separate in America. And I think that's really a shame. I think that's very fertile territory to be mined.
What do you think about this? And Catania talked about that. She said, what's being lost is the mentor relationship.
Completely.
That you lost. She should go back. She said, close the university programs, go to there. What do you think?
I think that's right. But I don't know if all of you have been watching Frank's totally genius Siegel talks for these 18 months. But all of my mentors, I got to watch Richard Foreman and Ann Bogart and Joanne Akalaitis and Ann Catania. And we have to remember that theater is an oral tradition that's very ancient. I just lost my mentor, Olympia Dukakis, who was my goddess, for 30 years. She taught me everything I know. So I stand on Olympia's shoulders, and Olympia stood on somebody else's shoulders. And we should go back to that. I mean, I think that's how theater was always built, that we learned in process from people. I'm thinking about the puppeteer world. And for instance, I do, Arunapai, I do a lot of work with Basil Twist, and Basil will talk to you all the time about whose shoulders he's standing on and which puppeteers he learned from. Or Bill Irwin, the great clown who studied commedia and went to, Milan. And I mean, that's what art always was. And I think, again, we're going to, the MFA program at ACT, alas, is going to disappear because it can't be funded and they don't care about it there much anymore. But I think that's what we have to do is figure out a mentorship that keeps the threads going. Yeah.
Since you are a mentor and have been and will be, what are your plans? What are you going to do? Let's say COVID is over in a way, or it is safer. What's in store?
So I'm in the middle of doing this director commission. We created this idea with our union here because we all lost our healthcare. I don't know how it works for you, but in America, freelance directors or artists, you get your healthcare through your union. And if you don't have enough weeks, you get no healthcare. Our country, richest country in the world, has no universal healthcare. So we came up with this idea of commissioning directors the way you commission a playwright. It's totally obvious, but nobody had done it, to say directors are generative artists. So I got a commission from Seattle Rep. And I started out as an archaeologist in my career. I don't know if you know that, but I studied ancient Greek and that's what I wanted to do. So I've been working for many years on the whole Oedipus cycle. And I've been working with a wonderful African-American actor called John Douglas Thompson, who I just did Hamlet with. So we're doing this long exploration of the Oedipus cycle, of identity, of what happens when you have a lineage that doesn't go back or that you can't trace, which is Oedipus, and which is sort of, identity is such a huge issue in America today. And we're working with a big community-based veterans group in Seattle of old men who will be part of the chorus. Anyway, so I'm trying to sort of reimagine Greek tragedy and doing the same thing in San Francisco with the San Francisco Girls Chorus, 47 girls being the Maenads in the Bacchae, outdoors behind the Fine Arts Museum. So I'm trying to figure out a different way to work than I worked at ACT. And so going back to the Greeks for me is always really fertile.
Incredible to reinterpret the classic stories, find what's contemporary about them, and also then work with, as you say, with people who perhaps are not part of the theater machine, you know, but
right. And you've had a lot of discussion about that today.
Yeah.
Ava from Switzerland about community and how you engage a community. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is of real importance, and something we should see. You move between now Los Angeles, between San Francisco and New York. Do you see differences in the two cities? How they handling COVID, the theater community?
I mean, the theater community here is really scattered. It isn't nearly as close as New York. I miss that about New York, you know, where people are much more on top of each other and know what they're doing. It's a very fragmented community here. So I've been looking for people who are in adjacent, like I've been working with puppeteers and I've been working with dancers, just to see who else is in the community who wants to play. Because it's quite a fragmented community. And although San Francisco is very political, it's also, I think, in some ways very balkanized. And so I just thought, well, I've run the biggest theater in town. Now I'm going to get rid of all of my institutional trappings and go to see what else is there and who else one can learn from. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is quite an interesting time. So for you, in a way, you're not only a theater shut down, big job came to an end. So it's in that sense a complete turnaround, a topsy-turvy of your life. And it coincidence with the world history in a way.
Yes. And so, you know, as I realized, I mean, we are all of us in this massive transition right now. We don't even know how to re-enter the world. You know, we've all been behind screens for so long, we have to learn again, like, what is it to be together and work together? So yeah, I went through it. I had run a theater since I was 24 years old. So for me, it was like jumping off a cliff when I left ACT, but then came COVID and I thought we're all jumping off a cliff. So we all have to figure out how to reinvent ourselves. What are we going to be now in the world, and how are we going to be together?
So I know it's far away, it's India, but you listen, as you said, to some of it today. What do you say? What comes to your mind? What do you say to Indian artists, and what comes to your mind when you listen to it?
I mean, it was such an incredible day. I can't thank you enough. I learned so much. I mean, I listened to the puppet stories and street theater and people getting COVID, getting shut down. I mean, one thing I heard is how many more artists were infected. My New York friends got infected early on. My California friends, nobody got COVID because we were much more quickly isolated. I don't know if you found that in Tokyo, you know. So I was amazed at how many people had lived through illness very close to them or themselves. And how resilient they'd been, you know, and for such a huge country, how collectively they behaved. And it made me sad that we as Americans didn't do that, we are a very polarized country right now with these sort of coastal elites where California talks to New York, but the middle of the country we kind of ignore. And it made me really moved to listen to our Indian colleagues, how they had supported each other and were aware of what each other were doing, and both in the most tangible things of bringing oxygen and doing things, but also in making art. And that's something for us really to learn from. We are not nearly as connected, I feel, in this country as the artists that I listen to today in India.
Yeah, that is quite true. I don't know if you prepared a reading, you didn't have to. If you have
I
something
have a
to
little
share.
Something, and it'll be short. But this is in honor of Abhishek, Mujamdar, because on his last day, on his interview with you, Frank, about a month ago, I was trying to finish writing my book on Stoppard and Pinter, and I didn't know how to end it. And he said that reading Tom Stoppard's Coast of Utopia is what helped him get through COVID. And I called Tom to tell him that, and he was very moved. So I'm going to read two little tiny things from Coast of Utopia in honor of him. I don't know if he's here or listening, or you will tell him. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to read this because it's really about art for art's sake. And when people have gone through such trauma, it almost feels indulgent, but I think it's because Stoppard believes so deeply that art is transformative and it will save us. So these are two little sections, real short. The first one is the literary critic Belinsky is talking to a philosopher, Chayadev, and he can't explain why he's so frustrated that Russia has so much potential, but no real literature. And he says, I'm losing my youth and my health, and I'm making enemies all over the shop when I could be surrounded by admirers who want nothing from me except to take away my independence. Because I believe literature alone can, even now, redeem our honor. Even now, in words alone that have ducked and dodged their way past the censor, literature can be, can become, can... And then he stops, then he starts. I don't know what I'm saying half the time, but that's the half that's explained to me as a glass of water. And Chayadev says, you mean literature can make itself useful with a social purpose? And Belinsky says, no, let social purpose hang itself unhindered. Art has the right to be useless as an end in itself and for its own sake. No, I mean, literature can replace, can actually become Russia. It can be greater and more real than the external reality, more real than this haunted ruin that was never even a building. It only has to be true. Art is true or false. Everything else about it is up to the artist. But on that, we are in the emperor's seat. Hail or good night, not true to the facts, not true to appearances, but true to the innermost of the innermost doll, where genius and nature are the same stuff. That's what makes an artist moral. The moment he has a thesis, he's no longer moral. He's merely a moralist, a huckster, maybe talented, but that's not it. It won't help us when every time we say Russia, we have to grin and twitch like half-wits from the embarrassment of a mother country that has given nothing to the world and taken nothing from it. Russia, yes, I'm afraid so. You've got it, the backwoods, no history, but barbarism, no law, but autocracy, no glory, but brute force, and all those serfs. We're nothing to the world except an object lesson in what to avoid. But a great artist can change all of that, can make it irrelevant. Well, not one, even Pushkin for a start. I mean, Pushkin up to, say, Boris Godunov. He's finished now. He hasn't written a great poem for years, but even Pushkin or Gogol's new stories, definitely Gogol. And there's more to come. I know they're coming. And soon, here things are growing, not by the year, but by the hour. Every time I open a new manuscript, I wonder whether it's going to make last week's Telescope completely out of date. You see what I'm saying? When the word Russia makes you think of great writers and almost nothing else, the job will be done. You'll be able to walk down the street in London or Paris, and when someone asks you where you're from, you can say, Russia, I'm from Russia, you poor bastard. So what do you think of that? And then at the end of the play, it's a play about utopia. And the question is, why do we believe in utopia? Why do we who make theater even try to make new worlds on stage? And what is the creative act about? And how do we both try to dream of utopia, but also in some way live with the reality we're in? So this is the very last tiny section of that play, which is Alexander Herzen speaking about accommodating in his life, to go on and to know that there's no landfill on the paradisal shore, and still to go on, to open men's eyes and not tear them out, to bring what's good along with them. The people won't forgive when the future custodian of a broken statue, a strip wall, a desecrated grave tells everyone who passes by, yes, all this was destroyed by the revolution. The destroyers wear nihilism like a cockade. They think they destroy because they're radicals, but they destroy because they're disappointed conservatives, let down by the ancient dream of a perfect society where circles are squared and conflict is canceled out. But there is no such place, and utopia is its name. So until we stop killing our way towards it, we won't be grown up as human beings. Our meaning is in how we live in an imperfect world in our time. We have no other. So that's from Stoppard, and he sends you his love and his congratulations, Frank. He grew up in India. It's a country that means a great deal to him, and he really honors the work that's being done by all of you right now.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, and it's a great reminder about the imperfect world we do live in. In that literature, yes, it can change. It can change it, how we see it and how we understand and see the world. Let's move over and perhaps right away to Toshiki, because you are before rehearsals in Japan. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Hello, I'm Toshiki Okada. I'm a playwright and as well as a theater director. Mostly I direct the play and I write myself. And that's my basic way of making theater piece. I am a member of a theater company called Jellyfish. It's my it's the base of my theatrical activities. But sometimes I work in the different production from my theater companies. For example, these years I went to Munich in Germany to make a repertory. To make a repertory in a Stadttheater, the Münchener Kammerspiele. Yeah. Yes. That's okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, Toshiki is one of the great directors and writers of the world of contemporary theater, and also for you to know, after the Fukushima catastrophe, Toshiki moved away his family from Tokyo to rural area. So he has a relation to catastrophes. So how are you a little bit later? You were one of our first guests, I think even in the first week. So how are you experiencing Corona and the time of Corona?
It's very, thank you, Frank. It's very interesting thing for me to compare with these two things. Nowadays the COVID dates and the what I experienced a decade before. It's mean the Fukushima incident. Yes, as Frank mentioned, I was born in Yokohama. It's very close to Tokyo, and grown up there almost at the until right before until right after the Fukushima incident happened. But when it happened, my family decided to move away to the west. So that now I'm living in the very west part of the country. So we are very happy for it. But now I am somehow in Tokyo. Because it's we are going to have a rehearsal for my company's the future project, and most of members of the companies are living in Tokyo. So that's why I'm come to Tokyo now. It was very weird. But I had to say I was kind of happy under the COVID situation because this situation made my schedule in the last between April and summer. It was canceled. But it means that it gave me a space to the time to spend with family and the time to think, think things deep.
What did you think about?
For example, what is theater? Because yeah, because of course the theater was closed. So yeah, so like so many theater people, I was also the theater person to try it out. What could be possible in a different format from the physical space of the theater. I mean, of course, for example, in this the online format, I don't think I could find a very good idea to realize the theater in this online way, but I'm sure it was very good experience for me to think about it for a long time. Yeah, because it helped me. It helped me to think about theater. What is theater? Yeah, deep. So that now, fortunately, in Japan, we can, we can have a performance in the theater. We can have a public audience, so we can have physical space to realize the theater. Yeah, so I did last month in my new creation. Yeah, and I felt very strongly that after I experienced the time that we couldn't do it. Yeah, it makes me be able to realize the theater and in a stronger way in comparison with before.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I think actually your play was the last play in a big theater I saw. It was at NYU in the Skirball. And I think already your set couldn't arrive because it got stuck in customs because of COVID. I remember you said you did rehearsals on Zoom and you were fascinated that all of a sudden the actor took on the screen the same space as you, as the director.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about it. What did it change something? As a result, at the time you were just starting, but did it change a bit how you work and think?
Yeah, my mindset, my current mindset is very different from how I used to be the last year. When I was very hard to look for the good way of the good way of online rehearsal. Yeah, because last year it was very new. So in a way, it's possible for me to take that situation as something good trigger to find something new. Yeah, it could it could be a good chance for artists to find something new. Yeah, it was how I think, how I deal with the COVID situation last year. Yeah, but now, as I already mentioned, at least in Japan, the theater can be open, and I can, we can enjoy how much the physical space to share between performance and the public is crucial. So now, now I have to say, I didn't have such a big passion to find a way of the online rehearsal.
Mm-hmm. Well, so tell us a bit. What are you in the half an hour or 20 minutes when you will go over? You will rehearse. What are you rehearsing now? And is it a bit different? Does it feel different? Will the aesthetic outcome be different because of that year of pause? So what are you working on?
Yeah, and yeah, it's very basic. It's very basic, but theater can generate some fictional thing as a kind of a phenomena in space, and for audience, it can be some big experience to share that fictional, imaginary phenomenon. The performance can generate with different people, different but it cannot be happened when you are just in like this online format.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's obvious basis. Yeah, but it's very big, and now I make I can put this characteristic point of a theater very big, very very big the point now, and now I'm rehearsing for the future project of my theater company. It's very future. We think it will be prepared the 2023. So
Mm-hmm.
now we are having a very the beginning process.
What is it about? Can you share?
Now this project now I'm starting the we just starting the workshop. It's it will be kind of a music theater. So and of course I'd like to explore the very new new kind of music theater. That's what I'd like to find. As I mentioned, now I'm interested in realizing something fictional phenomenon in a space, in a space where some performance happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then this for this production, we can have music, and of course music can have also the very strong and different way of realizing the fictional atmosphere, and even so now we are now past exploring how we can find a interesting collaboration between the performance by actors with the body and the voice, and and the music.
That is interesting. I like what you said about your work, the fictional performance, the fictional atmosphere. And that's what you do in your plays, the atmosphere you create in kind of a fictional a setting, and
to be honest, before I experienced the Fukushima incident, I was not that interested in fiction. even though I was doing theater. Yeah, but what I realized after I experienced the Fukushima incident and the disorganization or almost chaos, how our society experienced. When I saw that, I realized how much it was important to put the fiction in front of reality, and try to juxtapose the fiction against the reality, and to make tension between reality and fiction. And it's almost like, like fiction can take over reality. So that's what I realized. So, and after that, I was very hard to realizing the fiction in my theater activity. So that passion is still alive in myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just as Carey pointed out, that Tom Strombach was the invention of a world through literature. You're also a writer, but then you also invent and create and present that fictional atmosphere that is concerned about environment, about human connection, very basic human connection, the fear of connection, and also the idea of a loss
and I think that this under current situation, even it is very effective to think about to think like how can we put the fiction in front of reality and juxtapose them.
And it's interesting that you now think of the idea of music or musical in that reinvention of putting in front, as you said, also the relation between audience and actor, the body on stage, that you feel all of a sudden music should come. I don't remember I saw people singing in your place before, so it is kind of a very new phase.
I said that we have concept about the future project and the musical theater, but it doesn't mean that actors are singing. Maybe they are just speaking, but their spoken word can be connected with can be collaborating with music. That's absolutely what now we are looking for.
Well, that is amazing, and so many people, I'm sure, around the world will be interested in what you invented, what you changed, and what you will put on after that relatively long time of reflection. What you also said was so important to you and fruitful, and put it in. I think also a book about your work will come out from my colleague Peter Eckersall, the great Peter Eckersall, and about performance research about your work, so you can. I think it gives a very good insight into your history and your concerns and your thinking, and also the results you have. Toshiki, happy if you stay with us. You don't have to. I know you have to go to rehearsals, but
of course I will. It's my big pleasure, of course.
So thank you so much again. Really for sharing, being with us. It means a lot to us that you took the time. And let's go back to India, which is on the center of it. And we have with us Gunduraju. He's a legend. I think a great performer in India. Anurupa, tell us a little bit about him.
So Gunduraju ji is a leather shadow puppeteer, and he is 9th in the generation of puppeteers in his family.
9th generation,
9th generation. So they've been doing it for a few hundred years. And some of the puppets you see at the back, I think the puppet on the left is a few hundred years old, if I'm not mistaken. He lives in Hassan district of Karnataka, which is about 120 kilometers from Bangalore. Takes a few hours from Bangalore by bus. And there is a large community of leather shadow puppeteers in Hassan, and another community in Bellary, both in the same state. The rest over to him.
Yeah, and Anurupa, for everybody knows, she's of course translating right now, but she's also a master, a puppet player, a master of puppetry in India, and also did incredible work. And as Carey said before about Abhishek, when she dedicated the reading, also Anurupa was part of that really effort. But yes, Anurupa, let's go over to Gunduraju.
गुंडूराजू जी आप अपना थोड़ा सा परिचय देंगे, इंट्रोडक्शन करेंगे, मैं ट्रांसलेट कर दूंगी.
ओके, नमस्ते, मैं गुंडूराजू इंडिया और कर्नाटक से बात कर रहा हूं. मैं 9 पीढ़ी से ये ट्रेडिशनल पपेट्री करते आ रहा हूं. इंडिया के तरफ से 3rd ओलंपिक गेम में मैं पार्टिसिपेट करके इंडिया को सिल्वर मेडल लाया था.
Let's translate maybe, Anurupa.
He said he's from Hassan district, Karnataka, and is a traditional puppeteer and the 9th in his generation, and of course has a son and a grandson, so they will be the 11th and the 12th generation, and a great grandson, I think. And he was also one of the participants in the big theater Olympics in Korea and
3rd Olympic game.
So the 3rd Olympics. No, not the sports Olympics, but the theater Olympics.
Oh, theater Olympics. Okay.
International theater Olympics. Yes, sir. आगे थोड़ा सा तोगालू के बारे में बताएंगे.
हाँ, तोगालू के बारे में. लेकिन तो मेरे पिता से पहले तो तोगालू डियर लेदर से शो पपेट बनाते थे. लेकिन तो अब तो 50-60 साल से हम तो पेड़ के चमड़े से, बकरी के चमड़े से पपेट बना रहे हैं. बना के वो ट्रांसफर घर में ही ट्रांसफर बनाते हैं, उसी पर चित्र बना के हम तो ट्रेडिशनल पपेट बना लेते हैं.
Let's translate.
रामायण महाभारत पुराण का कहानी.
तो मैं ट्रांसलेट कर देती हूँ. So traditionally, till about 60 years ago, the leather that they used was deer leather, because deer is an animal which doesn't have any body fat and it lasts a very long time. So this is typically what a puppet would look like. It's translucent also. So the light goes right through the leather. Now deer hunting is illegal in India, so they use goat leather. And the form is called Togalu Gombayata. Togalu is leather and Gomba is doll. And Atta is dance typically. So it's leather doll dance. And he's talking about both the material as well as the color. The leather is made by the puppeteers. He comes from a hunting community. They were a tribe who were hunters. They would hunt the animal, clean up the leather. When the leather is stretched in the sun, it becomes translucent. It doesn't remain hard and dark as we know it.
ऐसे लेदर बनाते हैं.
थोड़ा सा पास लेंगे. हाँ जी बताइए सर.
हाँ, ऐसे लेदर बनाते हैं. लेकिन तो बचपन से बच्चे को ये लेदर करने का, शो करने का ट्रेनिंग चलते जाता है. बचपन से 5 साल बच्चे से ट्रेनिंग चलते जाता है. लेकिन तो हजारों कहानियां करना है, लेकिन 1-2 कहानी में नहीं हो सकता है. लेकिन तो ट्रेडिशनल कलाकार तो जो गांव में विलेज में जाते हैं, वहां तो मेला लग जाता है, मंदिर के सामने जाता है, शादी में करता है, कोई मर जाता है, उनका देहांत होने के बाद वहां शो करते हैं. ऐसा.
Let's translate.
Yes. So he said, this is an art form we learn from childhood. So the school is at home. It begins really fast. I'm just going to add this because last time I was visiting his home, his grandson, who was 2.5, was already hitting the tabla rhythmically. So it's something they imbibe as they grow up. The very important aspect is the narrative. So the puppets illustrate the narrative, and they have thousands of stories. Gunduraju ji himself, from their particular version of the epics, knows about 3,000 or 4,000 verses from each epic. And it's narrated orally. None of this was ever written down. It's all orally transmitted from generation to generation. This is also where the big concern is, that the loss in puppet theatre is not of the puppets per se, but of the oral intangible heritage. In the village, they have a very particular role. He was talking about how they go and perform in front of thousands of people, either in front of the temple or in someone's house. He also has designated villages. There are 58 villages that are designated to him and his family. So each puppeteer will have designated villages. They will perform at very important ceremonies for rites of passages, so for the birth, death, marriages, and occasions like that. जी sir. गुंडूराजू जी, थोड़ा सा कोविड, थोड़ा सा इसके बारे में बताएंगे, जब जहाँ कहाँ आप परफॉर्म करते हैं उसके बाद कोविड पे आते हैं किस?
हम तो ये क्या होता है, ट्रेडिशनल पपेट का ये पपेटियर जो कर्नाटक में पहले थे, सब जब उनका हिस्सा हो जाता, जागीरी होता था। एक राजा महाराजा ने इतना गांव को, इतना पपेटियर को दे देता था। वो राजा महाराज के काल से वो ये किसी को नहीं पूछते, वो सीधा गांव में चले जाते, वो गांव का मुखिया होता है, उनसे बात कर लेते, कोई शो करना है, कौन सा कहानी करना है, ये जब उनसे पूछ लेते, वो तो मंदिर के सामने वो शो कर देते। रात के 9 बजे शुरू हो जाता है, सुबह 6 बजे खत्म हो जाता है, पूरा रात शो हो जाता है।
1 second.
Okay, so what he said is that this kind of division was done by the kings many centuries ago. So for centuries, they are assigned particular numbers of villages. They don't have to ask for anyone's permission to perform. They walk in, talk to the village head or a community head, and a performance begins. Typically, it goes on all night. So it starts with sundown because it's shadows and goes on till sunrise. Sir, और आप लोगों को पैसे कैसे मिलते थे? किस तरह से गांव आपको पैसा
नहीं देते, लेकिन उन्होंने ये देते धनिया, चावल, गेहूं और आटा और रागी, इतना पूरा कोई खाने का चीज को जो है, नया कपड़े, ये पूरा उन्होंने गांव के इतना, एक घर में इतना देना है, घर में 4 किलो 5 किलो ऐसा दान दे देंगे।
So payment typically used to be in the form of groceries, spices, new clothes, and so it was never really cash. So all the puppeteers had enough for the year because the village was paying for performances through things, through basic necessities. और sir leather भी तो देते थे.
So if I could ask Anurupa, how did he deal with COVID situation? How did that in his family business?
कोविड के बाद क्या हुआ आपके परफॉर्मेंसेस का काम का?
कोविड के बाद इतना हुआ, कोविड का शुरू हो गया, लेकिन तो हम नहीं जानते थे कोविड ऐसा होता है, लेकिन तो हमने तो गांव में तो शो करने के लिए चले गए, पूरा हमारा फैमिली को कोविड हो गया, लेकिन हम तो डर गए तो डॉक्टर मुझे जानते थे, सबको जानता हूं मैं, लेकिन उनको बात किया, डॉक्टर भी हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट हो गए थे, तभी ने उन्होंने क्या किया?
Let's translate, yeah.
Yes, so he said when COVID started, they weren't really sure what this is. They continued to perform, and then the entire family was infected, including the new baby actually. And he knows all the doctors in the village, so he went to the doctor, but the doctor was actually hospitalized. So it was a really difficult situation. हाँ सर, आगे बताइए।
लेकिन तो बाद में उन्होंने बता दिया, ले घर में तो हमें क्वारंटाइन हो गए, लेकिन 14 सब ठीक हो गए, कुछ तकलीफ नहीं हुआ, लेकिन तो ये क्या हुआ, कामकाज बंद हो गया। लेकिन तो मैं ये बताना चाहता हूं आपको, कलाकार का आप तो भाग लेते हैं, चार भाग कर सकते हैं। एक ट्रेडिशन पपेटियर तो पूरा गांव में विलेज में शो करता है, उन विलेजेस के पास कुछ लेता है, उनको तकलीफ नहीं हुआ।
Let's translate.
ये टाइम में क्यों?
Sorry sir, he's saying the doctor said quarantine at home, so after 14 days, fortunately nobody was very seriously ill. This was also the first wave of COVID in India. Also what he was saying is that in terms of the effect to his work was very severe because there was no possibility to go out and perform. The thing to remember is that the traditional performer, a lot of them are farmers, and also the village actually takes care of their daily needs. They are usually the ones, at least in his community, who weren't immediately affected, because you had the larger community taking care of you, and also some of them are farmers themselves. So food was not the first crisis. जी सर, बाकी अब 3 और आर्टिस्ट बता रहे थे.
लेकिन तो वो तो राशन तो विलेज में मिल जाता है, लेकिन तो दिन में हम तो शिकार, मछली का शिकार करते हैं, पैसे मिल जाता है. लेकिन तो ट्रेडिशनल आर्ट को यही तकलीफ हुआ. लेकिन ट्रेडिशन तो ये करते हैं, प्रोफेशनल आर्टिस्ट बन गए थे, कोई गवर्नमेंट के से कोई संस्था से पैसे लेके शो करते थे, उनको बहुत तकलीफ हो गया, वो तो पूरा बंद हो गया. लेकिन क्या हुआ इधर, तो मैं यही सोचा था, लेकिन बाद में हमारा डिस्ट्रिक्ट में भी, आसन डिस्ट्रिक्ट में भी तो ये चला, तो आ गए पूरा गवर्नमेंट के पैसे लेके.
Let's translate 1 second.
Yeah. So what Gunduraju is saying is the ones who did not depend on sources other than the village or their own farming, and also fishing is a big part of the community, were better off. The ones who depended on professional money, on the government, for instance, were very badly affected, and their work came to a standstill.
ऐसे ये तो क्या होता है. और तीसरा तरह कलाकार जो है तो गवर्नमेंट के काम में रहता है, कुछ काम काज करते हैं, वो प्रोग्राम करते रहते हैं, उनको तकलीफ नहीं हुआ. कोई प्रोफेशनल ढूंढ गए, ये संस्था बना के गवर्नमेंट के फंडिंग से प्रोग्राम करते थे, उनको तो इतना दिक्कत हो गया, उन्होंने बहुत लॉस हो गए. लेकिन तो पपेट्री में भी क्या हुआ, 2 साल बनने के बाद छोटे छोटे बच्चे तो पपेट्री छोड़ दिए, हालत बिगड़ गया. लेकिन हमारा
what he's saying is that in the traditional puppeteers who were not entirely dependent on government funding and did not have big companies were the ones who survived. Any big company which was completely dependent on funding is the one which came to a complete standstill. The other big loss has been the next generation. Younger people who were puppeteers left. So they don't want to be puppeteers anymore. It feels like a very insecure option currently.
Anurupa, is he planning to read something or show something? It might be a time now, or do we continue the conversation?
Sir, आप कुछ दिखाना चाहते हैं, कुछ गाना चाहते हैं, या हम because सिर्फ 2 ही मिनट बाकी हैं. तो एक सेकंड सर, थोड़ा सा मैं बता दूं आपका, just to connect, because the translation takes time, because we've been in conversation a lot. Gunduraju ji currently has been running 2 relief operations. One is to talk to the district magistrate of Hassan to ask the government to support, not by giving continuous work to one artist, but to distribute it to the own community. And I must say this is incredible, because it means he gets less work. He was one of the most funded artists, and he gets less work and the community gets more work. The second is a very interesting story. He started a ration distribution with 50 kits, asked the local MLA, the minister, to distribute it. He said, I can't be there, I'm really busy, but I'm going to send you 50 more. So he's also managed to involve the local political bodies to keep the ration distributions going in his community. So ek Gana aap sunayenge? He wants to just sing one of the songs of the
That's good, yeah.
कुशने केळै रावणन पुत्र मित्र बांधवरु रामनुल सरसवनाडी मडियल्के बसवळिदु चारकरु बंधु दशमुखनि गरुवलु. ओ मित्र विभीषण, ये क्या है? आधी रात में इतना लोग कहां से आ रहे हैं? और वानर सेना, बल्लुक सेना रात में सोए है, तभी किधर से सांप आ रहा है, किधर से बिच्छू आ रहा है, कीड़े मकोड़े आ रहे हैं, ये वानर को, बल्लू को काट रहे हैं. वानर ने जान बचाने के लिए कितना भाग दौड़ करके समुद्र में गिर के मर रहे हैं. ये क्या बीमारी है? कहां से आया है? स्वामी श्री राम, ये तो जानना मुश्किल नहीं है. मेरा भाई का बेटा है, मायावी इंद्रजित, असुर का माया है. उन्होंने ऐसा मायावी अस्त्र चुराकर बेच रहा है, रात में सबको काट रहे, चिंता मत करो, मैं अब जाके उनसे लड़के उनको मार के आपको विजय प्राप्त कर दूंगा.
Thank you.
I will translate. This is COVID comes in the form of a lot of insects during the Ramayana, and he talks about the first virus that was spread and used in biological warfare during the Ramayana. So it's a mythological story, but he's been playing it in the present context.
How interesting, how beautiful, and what a great tradition that is. I mean, I can only imagine what would happen if a Kara Walker, a great American artist, if she would collaborate with Gunduraju to put her work, which is such a social commentary on the Black experience of America, in that. I would like to go back to a comment he made. He said the puppets are translucent. Light shines through. This is an incredible concept also. So the light, if he could tell us a bit about the light that comes through the puppet, how he sees that.
Sir, ये पूछ रहे हैं कि जो puppet के अंदर से light आता है, जिससे color दिखता है puppet में, उसके बारे में आप कुछ बताएंगे? ये इसका मतलब क्या है आपकी performance में?
लेकिन तो कलर से हम तो यहाँ दिख रहे हो, ये नीचे नीचे कलर से आ रहा, लाइट आ रहा है. ये लेदर तो इतना पतला कर देते, प्लास्टिक बना देते. प्लास्टिक बनाने के बाद रंग चढ़ाने पर छोटे 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 छेद कर देते. उसी में क्या होता है, मोती जैसा दिखता है. एक स्ट्रक्चर देता है, कलर एक कैरेक्टर को एक स्ट्रक्चर भी देता है और मोती मोती जैसे ज्वेलरी बना लेता है. लेकिन उससे क्या होता था?
Let's translate. Yeah.
So the color, what it does is, the color is not just its form, but in the color is also perforations. And these perforations are stenciled into the form. I wonder if we can see it in the puppet.
Yeah, no, I think we could see, yeah.
Yeah, so the perforations give the detail of jewelry, of textures of the cloth, of textures of the hair of the character, the expression of the character. I don't know if you can see the puppet on his other side. It's a composite image. So in this form, there is the moving puppet, there's the static puppet, there's the composite puppet. In the compositions, you have intricate stories in one puppet. So there are some perforations in this one. If light shines from the back, you can see all the dots.
Yeah, and I've just, want to connect it. The great writer, Heiner Müller, a German playwright, he said what he didn't like often in theater, what he saw is that the actor stood in front of the text instead of delivering the text in a Brechtian idea to show the text. They stood in front and they were the text like a Prada or Louis Vuitton, say, look how great it is, what I can say. And he said, no, actually it has to shine through, the text has to come through. And I think that was quite a beautiful, philosophical concept that, the story you tell is through the light that shines through that puppet. Is something really to think about, and whatever work we do, whether it is Toshiki in Japan now, or they works in Munich, or Carey with her work that comes out, is something so beautiful in this ancient tradition, so simple but great. Does he have a last thought about that time? We have a minute left of Corona, and what is the important lesson we should all take with us?
सर टाइम खत्म होने वाला है, पर वो पूछ रहे हैं कुछ आखिरी में आप कहना चाहेंगे कि आगे की दुनिया कोरोना के बाद या कोरोना के साथ आपको क्या लगता है होने वाला है?
नहीं, अब आगे की दुनिया तो कोरोना के साथ जीना ही है, लेकिन तो पपेटियर ये जानना है, लेकिन आपके अपना सेफ्टी को भी कर लेना है. ट्रेडिशनल आर्टिस्ट का कोई चिंता नहीं है, लेकिन आज भी 3 महीना का खाली हो गया, 3 महीने से वो भाग जाते हैं गांव में, तो कुछ ला लेते हैं. लेकिन प्रोफेशनल आर्टिस्ट जो है वो तो दूसरा काम भी ढूंढ लेना है, वो पपेट्री भी करना है, नहीं तो पपेट्री से जीना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा.
So he's saying ये
सही है.
We have to live with COVID. There is no escaping it. But we have to decide how to live with it. We have to be safe. We have to continue to perform. We have to find a way to survive. He says, I think the tradition will always survive, because the traditional artist has never been dependent only on one kind of money. They've been able to diversify. The professional artist has to rethink and decide how they want to carry on in these times.
Yeah, amazing. These are great, great closing words. Thank you so much, Gunduraju, for joining us and sharing your art, your craft. Toshiki, for moving a bit your rehearsal, that you could be with us, and Carey with your beautiful, energetic, and so intense and really deep, meaningful reflections. Anurupa for translating, and also doing the work you did next to your puppet work. Really, that. It was the best of mankind, I think, which came out and shined through you, Anurupa and Abhishek. So let's move over to our next session, if they are all with us.
Bravo,
so thank you
Carey.
so much. Thank you.
Bravo,
and
really.
we hope to see you. And Carey, we need to have a cup of coffee.
Yeah, we will.
Yes. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we are moving over now, and I think to parts of the world that are of importance to us. It's Australia. It was briefly mentioned with Terry and the cruise, where there was a Malaysian-Australian company, but based in Malaysia. But now we go to Australia with Patricia Cornelius, if she is with us already, and then two great performers and workers from Romania. It is Michaela Tragan and Michaela Michaliov, if I say it right. So welcome everybody